What seems to be the problem, pal?
There's just so much pain in the world, so many issues. I don't think I can bear it.
Well, friendo, it sounds like you could use a dose of pop culture roulette.
Pop culture roulette? What's that? Some sort of pop culture themed podcast or something?
That's right, sonny boy. When hope seems far, dive into some PCR.
But I already get my entertainment news from Variety.
Huh, that's pretty good. If you're a chucklehead, PCR gives you news you need, condensed, unfiltered, and raw, from three nerds who know a little something about something.
Wow, okay, sign me up.
That's the spirit. Pop Culture Roulette. New episodes every Monday, available on all major podcast directories.
Welcome to this Moving Panels One Shot. Let's have a nerdy little conversation. And today we are celebrating the 30th anniversary, man, that makes me feel old, of Batman the Animated Series. I am here with Bat fanatic Blake Fowler, our dapper Southern gent. How are you, Blake?
I am fantastic, Laramy. What better way to celebrate the recently passed, at the time of this recording, Batman Day, than to talk about Batman the Animated Series, maybe the definitive interpretation of Batman.
Yeah, a lot of stuff. September 5th would marked officially the 30th anniversary of the premiere of Batman the Animated Series. Probably one of the greatest animated shows of all time. And then September 17th is Batman Day. Let me ask you, why is September 17th Batman Day?
That's a good question, since it's like a moving target every year. I think every single year it's on a different day. Because I remember I was teaching up near Charlotte, North Carolina one time, Laramy, and I had a class of 6th graders, and they knew I was a Batman fanatic. We talked about Batman Day coming up, and it was like in May that year. And so I had a wedding that I was photographing. And so I told the kids, I said, look, I'm not telling you have to, but if any of you are out and about this Saturday and bring me back anything Batman related, I will give you 20 points extra credit on your lowest grade. So they brought me in like the masks that were given out that year, the free comics and different stuff. So that was pretty cool. But it's a moving target all the time. I don't think they have any set date, which is kind of weird.
We won't talk about whether or not that's ethical, but
perhaps not morally, but legally, I was well within my educational rights.
Okay. So, and that's where I'm confused, because I thought it was always... Okay, so the first Batman Day was in July of 2014.
Okay.
And that was to mark the 75th anniversary.
Right.
And then, and then it moved to September. It's been September ever since.
Okay, well, there you go.
So you were just wanting Batman stuff from your students.
So maybe it was September that I asked them. Either way, they brought in a ton of stuff. So, yeah, I don't know why the date is what it is then. I will give a call to whoever's in charge at Warner Brothers DC at this point in time. That seems to change weekly, and ask them what's going on.
Yeah, it's the third Saturday in September.
There you go.
Is what it is.
Okay, good to know.
So there we go. But we're not talking about Batman Day. We're talking about Batman the Animated Series, groundbreaking show that debuted, like I said, on September 5th of 1992 on Fox Kids.
God, what a station, man.
What is that? Miss Saturday morning cartoons.
Was that like the Tick was on there?
Oh, yeah.
Batman the Animated Series. Did they have Ninja Turtles on Fox Kids?
No. CBS had Ninja Turtles.
CBS, okay.
Yeah, CBS had Ninja Turtles. No, Fox Kids, I think they had Where in the World's Carmen Sandiego.
Carmen Sandiego, yep.
The cartoon,
absolutely.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, that was good, man.
So
you
good.
just like either roll out of bed or roll in after school, depending on what day it was, and it was just nonstop great cartoons.
Oh, yeah. And then that lasted till September 15th of 1995, so just 3 years on Fox Kids. And then it returned with a new look on Kids WB on September 13th, 2 years later, 1997. And then it ultimately ended January 16th, 1999. Let me ask you, though, do you count the new Batman Adventures as a continuation of this show when it went to WB?
I think in some aspects it certainly is. Some of the storylines kind of do carry over. Obviously, the animation is different for a lot of characters. For example, if you look at the Scarecrow in Batman the animated series, he's like this like kind of goofy looking, Scarecrow figure. The New Adventures, the Scarecrow, pure nightmare fuel.
Scary.
Absolutely
scary.
Horrifying. So they changed some of the characters, which I don't know, makes the continuity called into question.
Well, and they were matching it up with Superman, because Superman had debuted on Kids WB.
Right.
And of course that was a lot more simplistic animation.
Yeah.
But no, Scarecrow was a Scarecrow was an upgrade.
Yes, absolutely.
But
a glow up, if you will.
Yeah, but then like Killer Croc was a downgrade.
Yeah, for sure. The Joker downgrade. I didn't like the Joker's new look.
Yeah, with the beady eyes and
did not like that.
No lips. He had absolutely no. There was no features to his face at all.
Perhaps an unpopular opinion. I did like Batman's new look over the blue cape, and I like just the black and gray. I'm a real big fan of that look.
And then switching to Tim Drake just out of the blue.
Yeah, that didn't make much sense at all, though. So I don't know why we decided to go that route.
And then what is it? Just me, or did Barbara Gordon get younger in that series too?
At a certain point in time, I'm like, Barbara Gordon is younger than any Robin we've had right now. Like, why do we keep getting her younger and younger? Maybe she visited the Lazarus Pit a few times and just continued to de-age. I don't know.
So there was the new Batman Adventures, which we'll say is part of this. So
yeah, I'm down with that.
So you got 4 seasons. You got 2 seasons Batman the Animated Series. You got season 3, which they retitled The Adventures of Batman and Robin.
Yep.
And then we'll say season 4 was the new Batman Adventures. But dang, this show was the alpha,
the epitome
of the
Yeah.
This was the beginning of the DC animated universe.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah. You built everything kind of out from here, and rightfully so, based on the popularity of it. I mean, I don't know numbers or anything like that, but I would, wager a bet that it was one of the most watched animated shows at the time.
Oh, I'm sure. I know that, I don't remember who, but somebody ranked it as the second greatest animated show of all time.
Do you remember what number 1 was, so I can tell them they're wrong?
The Simpsons.
False. Absolutely 100% incorrect.
No, I do remember number 1 was The Simpsons.
Okay, I guess.
So,
sure.
And then there was another ranking. They had it at number 7, and everything ranked above it. I think The Simpsons was ranked above it, but I think everything else ranked above it was from the 60s. It was like the Flintstones and Looney Tunes and Rocky and Bullwinkle.
All right, so an aside here. The only argument any cartoon show has about being better than Batman the Animated Series is the original Scooby-Doo series. That's it.
I do think it was ranked above it too, yeah.
Those are 1 and 2 for me as far as animated TV series goes.
No. But yeah, so you got Batman the Animated Series, which is, riding off of the popularity and the resurgence from Tim Burton's Batman in 89.
Right.
Batman Returns, I think, same year, right? Batman Returns was 92?
92, yeah. They
was 92, yeah.
They kind of hitched both of those wagons together there, I think, and just built it right off the end.
And then it even survived the Schumacher movies.
Oh, jeez. Only so few things did. I'm glad that was one of them.
But then we get Superman, the animated series. We get Justice League. We get Justice League Unlimited. We get Static Shock. We get the Zeta Project. Some people forget about that one, but that was technically a part of this universe. Yep. And then we get into the movies. You and I have talked about Mask of the Phantasm.
Man.
Yeah, you had Sub-Zero. Yep. You had Mystery of the Batwoman.
Return of the Joker. Batman Beyond.
Batman Beyond.
Return of the Joker. Yep.
Yeah, continued with Batman Beyond. And then even some of the more recent animated movies. I know... What is it? Justice League versus the Fatal Five is technically a part of
that original
continuation of this universe. Yep. So, man, the legacy that this thing's leaving, it's awesome. And again, you're talking about a lot of our generation, who grew up in the 90s, whether young or into teenage years. Yep. This was something that got a lot of people into comic books and into superheroes, just like X-Men the animated series did on the Marvel side. I think Batman the animated series and X-Men the animated series, those were the catalyst to a lot of our love for superheroes.
Yeah, dare I say, formative in much of our likes as far as what comics are into, and so much so that, kind of bringing it up to present day, I know you've recently got the X-Men '97 cartoon series is going to come from
Yep.
Disney, and then hopefully the Bruce Timm Batman series, they're trying to reboot the animated series, finds a home somewhere. We've discussed the mess that DC is right now, so I'm not going into that. But calling back to the popularity of those two shows.
I do want to say, though, let's not say that the DC is the mess. It's Warner Brothers and Discovery that is the mess.
Is the mess. Okay, that's fair.
Yeah,
that's fair.
DC is just the child caught into the war that the parents are fighting. So,
and according to statistics, half of us have been in that kind of mess, okay? 50% of us have experienced that mess. But again, the popularity of those shows is so long-lasting that these companies are saying, look, let's bring them back. Let's bring them back then.
And, I mean, again, the impact, you're talking, I mean, Harley Quinn is such a successful character.
Right.
And she came from this show. She did not come from the comics. She came from this show.
Yeah, you're talking one of the most now beloved comic book characters, Harley Quinn,
has her own show on HBO Max.
Out of this, without this, she doesn't exist theoretically.
Yeah, I mean, Margot Robbie has brought her to life, and then even going into that, since it popped into my head, Birds of Prey, although not a great movie,
watchable.
Birds of Prey also gave us a live action. Renee, I forgot her name.
Is it Renee Montoya you talking about?
Yeah,
Montoya.
Renee Montoya, who also came from this show, was created for this show, and now is a mainstream character in the canon of Batman.
Yeah, I think you've got stepping back and looking at this from 30,000 feet. You have got to applaud the, I guess, chance that at the time Warner Brothers DC took on Bruce Timm, this dark take on a comic book character, and believing
the great Bruce Timm,
believing that, hey, we trust his vision, we're going to make this work, and look at the dividends that it has paid. Things are messy now, sure, but leading up to the last 4 or 5 years, I mean, you've ridden. I know Chad has sent us several memes about DC milking the Batman cow until it's almost dry. But without Batman, what does DC have other than a couple of Superman movies? But it all comes from, I would say, all comes from this animated series. The popularity that this had led them to be able to do so many other things with Batman.
I think, well, now again, I think that Tim Burton's Batman started it.
Sure. No, started. Yeah.
I think that Bruce Timm then pushing through the animated series kept it going.
But you brought in a different fan base with the animated series.
Yes.
You were able to build a fan base that was going to grow up with Batman.
And what was great was they were able to do it without it being a traditional kids cartoon.
Right.
I mean, you have characters carrying guns.
Yeah, automatic weapons and
that didn't look like, laser futuristic type guns. They were real guns. You had characters bleeding.
Yeah. And I think we talked in a previous episode about what they could and couldn't do.
Yeah, they tiptoed around,
but they still it was still relatively graphic for that age range.
Yeah. And no, I totally agree. And yeah, they tiptoed around the censors, never actually showing a punch. There was that very clever flash that would happen. But man, just going back to Robin's origin, I mean, having the Graysons, you see their silhouette, their shadow.
Yeah. That's still seared into my memory from childhood. Man.
Yeah.
Watching
you
that
see
occur.
them go off screen, and then you see the broken rope come back onto screen.
It's a haunting image, I would say. And for them to be able to pull that off and allow the imagination to go somewhere without having to explicitly show what's going on was fantastic artistry all around.
And we've talked about this before too, but man, the voice actors.
Well, here's the thing. I don't think we'd ever talk about them too much. It's just so good that I don't think it is overkill to talk about the talent level that was involved, not only in the whole DC animated universe, but specifically in the Batman the Animated Series. Kevin Conroy, for most people, when you read a Batman comic, we've talked about, that is the voice that you hear. Mark Hamill is the voice you hear when you hear the Joker, and it's on and on and on. So many iconic things came out of this show. There's voice acting, even the opening credits, which I've talked about in one of our one-shots before, that end scene of the opening credits with the lightning flash and Batman, looming over the building tops. It gets callbacks in so many different Batman things that are done afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, Ruby and I have talked about it in Teen Titans Go to the Movies.
Right, yep, absolutely.
They reference it in that. But yeah, Kevin Conroy, Mark Hamill, I mean, Lauren Lester is Robin, Bob Hastings. I mean, it's such well-known actors as well.
People who were like, I want to be a part of this.
Yeah, because you had Ron Perlman, Hellboy himself as Clayface. You had classic actor, Roddy McDowell playing the Mad Hatter.
Mad Hatter.
John Glover, who would go on to play Lionel Luthor on Smallville, was the Riddler. Just some great voice actors. Arlene Sorkin famously made Harley Quinn's voice that everyone now, pretty much tries to mimic when they play.
Everybody wants to be the same voice for Harley Quinn,
Yeah, you want to have that kind of Jersey twang to your voice. It's so good. And of course, we've talked in length before. We talked about Bruce Timm, but Adrian Romano, who was the voice director for that. It's just such a... And then Paul Dini. I mean, if we're going to talk about you got Bruce Timm producing, writing, directing. You got Adriana Romano, who's casting and voice directing. And then you got the great Paul Dini, who's writing a lot of these episodes. And he's just, again, one of the greats when it comes to knowing how to write these characters.
Yeah, he's so good. So there is... With all this going on, all this success, I don't know how many people know, and we may have talked about it before, Paul Dini experienced a mugging at the height of while Batman's going on, and used that mugging and channeled it into Batman the Animated Series, which lends itself to a lot of the darkness. But there's a graphic novel he wrote called Dark Knight, a true Batman story, about his experience with that and about him having to overcome the PTSD of the mugging and how he poured that into the animated series. But just I don't know, I don't want to say that it's not heroism, I guess, but the ability to take that experience and create out of it is second to none.
Yeah. And it's definitely, there's definitely some courage in that, but I mean, just think about how therapeutic something like that is too.
Yeah, for him to be able to do that. But it's just, you had a perfect storm of creators, developers, voice actors, and people who are just passionate about a project to create this. Yeah. And you can tell people are passionate about it because of how good it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, just to continue giving credit, Shirley Walker for a lot of the music involved with it.
The score on the show is amazing.
Yeah. I mean, clearly they took Danny Elfman's music from the movie, the Tim Burton movies, and did their own little twist to it. But yeah, that's genius stuff there. And even the first episode, I mean, On Leather Wings, you would think you're gonna do Man Bat for your first Batman episode, but man, is it good.
Yeah, I won't jump the shark just yet, but we'll talk about that one in a minute too.
Okay. Well, no, let's just go ahead. I mean, this is just a one shot. So I asked Blake to come up with just a couple of his. Yeah.
We're going to talk about all 93 episodes, everyone.
Yeah, a couple of his favorite episodes, and I'm going to mention some of mine. But since we're on it, let's go ahead and talk. I'm going to assume then that On Leather Wings is one of your picks.
So I want to go honorable mention. Laramie had me pare this down to 3, which is near impossible to do. But
again, short episode.
Honorable mention: Blind as a Bat. One of my favorites. Batman Loses Vision. He gets this like device to wear inside of his cowl that kind of allows him to see a little bit.
Gives him the red eyes.
Yeah, the red eyes. Oh, it's an awesome episode. So good. Yes, and then in no particular order here, I do have On Leather Wings. Man Bat is my favorite Batman villain. So to see him featured in the first episode that I can keep going back to was awesome. Like you said, you expect the first episode to kind of phone it in and just like set stuff up here and there, and they just absolutely pedal to the metal, went for it first episode. It was awesome.
Well, I also like that in that episode they are showing that Batman, he cares just as much to save his villains.
Yeah, absolutely. He wants to save the humanity in the villains. He understands that in everybody there is something that could be, helped or corrected, and he's not willing just to go, bar none, murdering everybody.
So it was a great way to start that series and introduce that character to potentially younger viewers who was their first introduction to Batman.
It was incredibly good. I think an underrated episode, and also because I'm a kind of a horror buff, I love horror movies, books, Moon of the Wolf. So Batman is battling this werewolf creature. Not to spoil too much if you haven't seen it. It's a great episode. Good little horror twist in there for those of you that like that. And then if you don't have this episode in your top 3, I don't know what you're watching. Heart of Ice with
that's in mine. That's in mine.
It is probably the episode you point to for Batman the Animated Series. If somebody wants to kick off watching it, you say, all right, go watch Heart of Ice. Mr. Freeze, an underutilized and misunderstood character, if there ever was one.
I mean, he was a laughable character, probably.
Absolutely. Well, you look back in the 60s series, like he was just this the big fuzzy caterpillar eyebrows and the one-liners, and this episode takes him, makes him human, and makes you think,
makes him sympathetic.
Okay, maybe we should just leave him alone and let him do what he wants to do, and until he figures out how to save his wife.
Yeah. And then they ruined it in the Batman and Robin movie.
What, Laramie? We aren't going to talk about things that are hurtful. Okay, we talked about this already. Yeah. So that's mine.
Yeah, but let me point out, Heart of Ice, written by Paul Dini, directed by Bruce Timm.
It's such a good episode, dude.
Yeah, and then Moon of the Wolf was based on a comic book written by Len Wein.
Yep.
Or Len Wein. I always forget how to pronounce his last name.
I think it's Wein, but I'm not. Don't quote me on that.
So again, great stuff there. Of course, I also noticed that just like me, you kind of focused everything in season 1.
Yeah, and I hate to do that, but it starts off. All the episodes are great, but it starts off so strong in that first season. Like it is just punch after punch after punch.
Yeah, because Heart of Ice was only the
3rd or 4th episode, I think, wasn't it?
I think it's the 4th episode that was aired.
Yeah.
Because I know when you and I covered Christmas with the Joker back in Christmas, technically that was the 2nd episode produced, even though it didn't air until
later on.
Later. But no, I had a Heart of Ice on mine. Just to give my honorable mention actually doesn't come from the first season.
Okay.
It actually comes from the WB version, the new Batman Avengers, and that's the Legends of the Dark Knight.
So very good episode. You get all the different tales of Batman. Very cool.
And just nice little homage to the artwork of Dick Sprang.
Yep. Oh, the animation's different in every story. It's gorgeous. A gorgeous episode.
Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns. Yep. They can you imagine that? They took elements from The Dark Knight Returns and put it in a kid's show. Yeah.
What is it, man? It's not a... It's not a mud
the
hole.
Operating table.
This is an operating table. Oh.
Yeah, they put the operating table line in there. This is great. And then you got again, talking about great voice work. You've got Gary Owens, who I know most younger people aren't going to know who Gary Owens is, but Gary Owens, to me, he's always the voice from Laugh-In. But he's that classic narrator.
Yep.
And now and he was the voice of Batman.
Yep.
For when they were doing the Dick Sprang stuff.
But
then when they do the Frank
fits for that era, though.
Oh yeah, it fit perfectly. And then when they do the Frank Miller stuff, it's Michael Ironside.
Dude, and he was so
is the
good.
voice of Batman.
So good is that voice for that Batman.
Yeah. And then Legends of the Dark Knight is actually a comic book story. Yep. So they're also giving credit to Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams for that story. And then you've got even though we just made fun of them, they even give a nod to Joel Schumacher.
Absolutely.
They have a kid. One of the kids telling the stories is named Joel. He is standing in front of a shoe place called Shoemakers. And he talks about the really cool Batmobile that can ride up walls. I mean, it's a fun episode.
It's a very good episode. That's a great honorable mention.
Yeah, but that's I had to put that as an honorable mention. Of course, like I said, I had Heart of Ice. The one that always comes to mind first is Almost Got Him from season 1.
Okay, that's a good one.
Yeah. I mean, again, another Paul Denny story where you take all the villains just having a poker night.
Poker, yeah.
Yeah, and they just tell about their stories of how they almost got Batman. And so, just like Legends of the Dark Knight, you get all these little vignettes,
it's a
story
very
pieces,
fun episode. Yeah,
with all the different, just crazy ways that the villains try to take out Batman. And you gotta love it that Killer Croc says, "I threw a rock at him."
Threw a rock. Such a good line.
And they just stare at him for a second. It was a big rock. Yeah. And then, of course, the fun little twist at the end of that episode. Yep. It's a good episode. But then my other one is Beware the Gray Ghost.
Dude, I was so tough to leave that off. I fought on making that onto my list. I don't know. That's now you make me feel bad for leaving that off, Larry.
No. Again, there's so many good episodes. But yeah, Beware the Gray Ghost, written by Dennis O'Flaherty and Tom Ruger, directed by Boyd Kirkland, and of course the episode is it's a tribute to Adam West. Yeah. It's acknowledging that he is the Batman that came before.
But he set all this up,
yeah, and so and again to show how Bruce had a quote unquote superhero
he had a hero
inspiration, as a child. That's just another great episode that you really, again, it helps develop these characters and tell such a great story. There was so much depth to this children's show.
Yeah, I was gonna say the character development, I think, is what you came for the action and you ended up staying because you cared and were invested in the characters. Even for an animated show, even as a child, you knew, like, okay, this is somebody that I care about in the realm of this show. Like, I want to see what happens to these people. And that's what made it worth watching.
Oh, and then the roller coaster ride that this show would take you on sometimes. I mean, and I go, this is getting into season 4 again, but I cannot think of the name of the episode right now. But the one where Batgirl dies.
Oh, dude, that was like that's one of the Scarecrow episodes, right? Where it ends up being a nightmare. Yeah. God, it's not perchance to dream.
But then
think of what it is.
She dies in her father's arms. Hits her father's car.
Off of
and
a
then
building.
She's dying
people.
there.
Off of a building. Off a skyscraper.
Yeah, she's pushed off a building, and then he finds out that it's his daughter has been Batgirl, and then he hunts down Batman. Yeah. And you're just on this roller coaster ride, and then again to find out the whole thing was a dream. Yeah.
Was it Never?
At the end,
it wasn't Never Fear, was it?
No,
I can't remember. Either way, but I know the one you're talking about, and it was you're watching it, and you're thinking, oh god, like Batgirl just died.
Yeah,
it is. They did some stuff to your emotions.
But yeah, can you imagine? I mean, they gave depth to Clock King
Yeah.
in this series.
Someone
who
that
does that?
nobody cares about, okay?
And then Scarface, when they bring
yeah.
back, I forgot what the actual puppeteer's name is, but when they bring him back, and he's reformed, but his old gang try to almost drive him mad again. And Batman's barely in that episode. Like, that was the other thing this show did so well on, is it's a Batman show, but they focused on so many of the secondary characters and sometimes had them as the main focus of the show. They had a whole Thelma and Louise episode with Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn. Yeah.
I think that's the frustrating thing for me about some of the current DC stuff and everybody complaining, well, Batman's and everything. This show alone shows you can do other ancillary characters and make it to where people want to see it. But you've got to have the right people driving that vehicle, so to speak.
So yeah, this is just such a great show. I mean, we could talk about this probably for another hour, but we're just going to keep it there. Go out and watch it. I mean, watch it on HBO Max, at least as long as Discovery allows it to be
it's still there.
on HBO Max. Go out and buy the series on Blu-ray. You probably get it for like, $50.
I just bought it for $40 on Amazon, Laramy.
There you go. So $40. But check it out. 30th anniversary of Batman the Animated Series. Probably one of the greatest animated shows of all time, but definitely one of the greatest superhero comic book movies or series of all time, which spawned some of the great
movies.
Mask of the Phantasm, one of the greatest Batman movies of all time.
Agreed, 100%.
So, but you can't go wrong with how good this is, and so get out there and watch it. And for today, for Moving Panels, I'm Laramy Wells, and I'll see you on the other side of the page.
Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and listen to an 80s Flick Flashback podcast once in a while, you could miss it. Do you love movies of a certain age? Do you miss the days of VHS tapes, VCRs, and the video rental stores? Does the thought of another 80s movie being remade seem inconceivable? My name is Tim Williams. I'm the creator and host of the 80s Flick Flashback podcast. On each episode, I'm joined by guest co-host to discuss one of the many movies released in the 1980s. We share our first-time watch memories, our favorite scenes, and even learn some behind-the-scenes stories about the cast and crew along the way. New episodes are released every other Friday on your favorite podcasting platform. So make like a tree, get out of here, and go listen to an excellent episode of the 80s Flick Flashback podcast. The ad is over. Go home. Go.